me gold unless we're recording.
Why should you? You're dead right. You are dead right.
I see your work. I see you're working on that camera angle, Esther.
Yes. Yeah, but I need more now. I need more light here. I Googled. I was like, how to look better on Zoom? Because I had the camera thing down here. You need it up here.
Google how to look better on Zoom when we've created a 10-part series.
I mean, I have this rare condition where I just forget things after I watch them. But yeah, so I should have it up here. So I have it actually on a considered Dunn Stores little marble table. It's the perfect height.
And why am I the only one with a microphone?
I've got a microphone too, babes.
Oh, I don't. Think yours is yours the same as mine, just with a muffler on it?
No.
Well, yours is fancier.
It's not. It's not.
Sure.
Yeah.
But no, it's funny. So let's just kick it off then. So I texted you guys this morning and said, "What's the issue today?" And it's so funny. I said, I don't get it. What's this persuasion issue? And then I proceeded to rant at Sonia about the morning I've had, right? And she sounded like, "There you are. There's your topic, your subject matter." And of course, it all comes back to my mother.
We should get her on an episode.
So before I dominate for the first 10 minutes, it is the persuasion issue.
Correct.
And can I ask you, because I thought that might be nice to do on the podcast, is what inspired this issue? Because I don't think I was in the room. I mean, I probably was.
In fact, you led the conversation. It was Brendan's Persuasion Issue WhatsApp group. No, well, we have a very scientific approach to coming up with topics, and I think it was just volleyed into the WhatsApp group, and I was like, yeah, okay. So Sonia came up with the idea for this.
Okay. So Sonia, what was the inspiration?
I can't remember, because you see, the inspiration for the issues just generally pop into my head, as they do with both of you as well, I know, based on whatever you're consuming, whatever you're viewing or reading, or, so they tend to be kind of cultural hooks. So I can't remember. In fact, that would be a really good thing to do from here on in, is to put the reference, why that popped into our heads at the time, what made us think, persuasion. But I do know that I am very aware of persuasion in my life. And I think I am generally quite persuasive, except for with a few key individuals. But yeah, so I'm kind of fascinated by it. I mean, I read Robert Cialdini's work like years ago around the art of persuasion. And I do think it's very, very interesting. And actually, when I was thinking about it in the run up to this, I realized that I persuaded organizations and individuals to part with almost €1 million in investment for one of our companies. And then I wouldn't think I'm too far shy of that in terms of fundraising for Dress for Success as well. So I think that requires a certain level of persuasion to get people to part with their money. So it kind of fascinates me.
What is persuasion? Is there a dictionary?
Well, there's kind of a positive. Esther, do you want to go with a definition, or are you happy to let me ramble?
You can go for it. I mean, I have different approaches. I've got Aristotelian thinking on how to persuade someone. But no, if you've got something there, you should go for it.
I suppose persuasion is the art of making people do the things you want them to do, right? But I suppose on the upside, it is. We may have lost Brendan, did we?
Brendan's gone. It's fine.
We just persuaded him to go and
please come back.
I'm just doing the acting steps.
Oh, he's at a standing desk now. He's dangerous. Yeah. So it's the art of getting people to do the things you want them to do. But I suppose on the upside, it's a positive in that you can manipulate people to do your will. On the downside, it is a function of control and the human condition to want to control what's around us. So it can definitely be negative as well.
Esther, what have you got on it scientifically?
It's well, I suppose it's philosophically. let me scroll down here. So it was taken from I think a Harvard Business Review article, which will be in the show notes. And the title was the article was "The Art of Persuasion Hasn't Changed in 2,000 Years." And there's like 5 approaches to trying to persuade somebody. And first of all, you've got to establish your character, so people have to trust you in order for them to be taken in by what you're saying. Second of all, you've got to well
hard.
to. If you want them to, if you want them to do what if you want them to do what you want to do, and then you have to make a logical appeal to people. So you can be charming and whatever, but you have to have maybe the cold hard facts. And then you can use a third device is using pathos or emotion. So you can really inspire people and move people by, sharing something of yourself or whatever, however that manifests itself. Then the fourth device is metaphor. So he believed that metaphor gives language its verbal beauty. And if you can master this, then you can help convince people and persuade them. And finally, brevity, something that I am not too good at. Brevity, he said, Aristotle discovered that there are fairly universal limits to the amount of information which any human can absorb and retain. And I will end it there. So
actually, he capped it at 3. He said three pieces of information are kind of the limit. The people. So, and he has a lovely philosophy for when you're trying to persuade people, tell them the 3 things you're going to tell them, then tell them the 3 things, then tell them the 3 things you told them.
Okay.
So it's like a format for communication. I mean, when you think about it, this guy, so many thousands of years ago, he really knew his stuff.
But brevity, does brevity just mean you have to be brave, basically?
No, brevity.
No, brevity.
Brevity. Sorry, yeah. Brevity. And what does brevity mean?
Just keep it short and sweet.
Oh, brief.
Yeah,
okay,
brief.
Okay, because people won't take it in too much. So my situation today was unbelievable. My mother, who's amazing, but she's also cheap. She wouldn't spend Christmas because my father was a builder, so she's never had to pay for maintenance. Dad's gone. And her and my lovely brother are in the house, and they've agreed to let this guy who just has looked up at the roof of her kitchen extension and said it needs to be fixed, given her a quote, and they've agreed to let him come and do the roof. It's just been a day of absolute calamity. She rang me about 11:15 this morning, hysterical. The guy had come and they just got up on the roof and started taking the tiles down, took all the tiles off the roof, and then got down and said it's going to be about $5,000. He doubled the quote, right? Now, as it transpires, I was like, oh God, okay. So my brother was very emotionally upset about it because it's double the price. And it seemed justifiably so at the time, without any accusation, that it seemed that it might be a bit of a scam. And because she's older, they might have been getting up on the roof to and then doubling the price. As it transpires, and what had happened was they had called the police and everything. So I fly up and I'm like, oh God. And my mum's friend Sally is there, and myself and Sally are sort of being the voice of reason, and they're very upset because he doubled the price. They don't have the money. And when the police are coming, I just had this moment where I thought, okay, if the police come, it's going to kick off. There's 4 guys on the roof working right now in my mother's house. They think they're employed for the couple of days. She's unhappy. If the police walk into the garden, they're just going to get upset, right? So I said, I really think I have to try a bit of diplomacy here. I think I have to go and talk to them.
Did Brendan break up there for you, Esther?
No.
Okay, fine, keep going.
So I said, I think I have to try a little bit of diplomacy. And I started saying, there I go, who's this guy? So I just go into the garden. Now, remember, we're half an hour in the living room pulling our hair out and gnashing of teeth and tears and going over what happened and I'm trying to get the details. Mother's really upset. They doubled the price and they're on the roof and they took the tiles off. And like the things you described, I was really calm and very friendly, and I smiled and I thought, I don't want any trouble with this guy because I don't know all the facts and I don't know what he has done or hasn't done, right? I don't know. He could be a super nice guy. As it turns out, he was a super nice guy. He got off the roof straight away. He said, oh, hello. And I came over to me and I said, they're very upset, my mother and my brother. So they've called me. I'm her eldest son. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Apparently, you've doubled the price and they're freaking out. And I said, and full transparency, I've come out to talk to you because they've called the police and I don't want to. And he was like really shocked. And I said, it went from 2.5 to 5. And he said, oh, that was an estimate. It's fine at 2.5. It's fine at 2.5. Now, I don't know what was going on, but the diplomacy worked immediately, not even without a question. Now, none Nothing happened. He came back into the kitchen. He apologized to my mother. He said, there is a lot of work in it. We will absolutely do it. It's fixed. But I was thinking, if I hadn't have gone, because my friend's mother, Sally, said, what's your gut telling you to do? I said, my gut is telling me if the police walk into the back garden, it's going to kick off and they're going to walk off, right? It's going to get really serious really quickly. I have to try this. I have to try and persuade them to come around to the way that my mother wants the situation to go. And it was, you know what was interesting and why it's interesting talking about it now? It was, and why I said, does that he say brevity? It took balls to go into the garden. I was nervous. I don't know these people and I don't have all the information because I wasn't there. And I'm now going into Lion's Den I'm going into the Middle East. I'm going right into the Gaza Strip here now between fighting factions. And I'm trying to be a diplomat without being in the room for any of the conversations. So what was interesting was my assessment of the situation currently is that he is a nice guy. He probably just looked up, gave it a estimate, which is what builders do. When he got up to look at it, it was a little bigger than he thought. And then he scared the japers out of her. That's best positive case scenario. Other case scenario is he was having a chance and going, well, no, it's a bit more than I thought. But she needs, she's older. They need to be quite specific about that. But with my calmness and smiling approach, I had him instantly engaging with me. Instantly. There was no, and he didn't want to upset me either. He was like, oh, there was a respect so much so that it was very brave of him to come into the kitchen and apologize to my mother. Guess who that was? My mother. Fuck off, ma'am. Sorry.
Let's put her on speakerphone. Let's get her on. We want to get her. No, I've had a day of it. But what was interesting was I thought if I can save this situation, and the point is, remember, we're standing in a room with no roof on it now. And if they walk off, then we have a whole other drama to contain with, right? So I'm like, best case scenario is he agrees to the original price and does a good job. That's the best case scenario. But I had to muster myself, get my gut, think about how I was going to approach the situation, plan it, tell him honestly the information that the police had been called, that they were very upset, but that I thought there was a solution to be had. And I got exactly what I wanted in 3 sentences. Walked back in, rang the guards. The guards were delighted not to have to come. I'd say they hate those kind of situations because it's really messy. It's her word against his word, right? He could say, she said yes, blah, blah, blah. So, and off I went into the night. And I was like, that's really interesting because that was persuasion at its best in a crisis. And if I had gone into that garden with 2 cops aggressively, it would have kicked off. It would have been ugly.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because if you go in with the kind of frontal lobe, the primal stuff, you're actually blocking your strategic thinking. You can't access your strategic mind while you're in that chimp phase. So in order to persuade anybody to do anything, you have to be calm.
Yeah. And actually what's really interesting looking back on it, I didn't look at mom or my brother because they were too upset and they were just gobbledygook and they weren't helping. And I just kept looking at Sally and going, what do you think? What do you think? And she was like, just process for a minute. Just think about it. And actually the process period that I took, about half an hour, I kind of came to the conclusion, like, there's actually nothing to lose by me going out there and I'll just be charming. And if they argue back with me, sure, we just let the cops come and they can deal with it. So I came, but I had to play each scenario in my head for safety. I was there up on a roof with hammers. I just thought, I didn't know them. I don't know who these people are. My mother doesn't know who they are.
Yeah.
So I thought, I don't want to get into a brawl with somebody if they get really angry because maybe they did tell my mum something or, So I had to really strategically think about how the best outcome could happen from even what's the worst case scenario of me going out there and what's the best case scenario and is it worth risking either? It's really interesting.
Would you consider yourself in general a persuasive person?
Yeah, because I'm very passionate. If I don't believe in something, I can't sell it. If I don't believe in it, what's that? That's
the pathos piece. That's kind of, the authentic meaning.
I actually think funny, this has just come to my head now, that I have an ability to oversell an idea. or a thought or a thing. So much so that when people are confronted with the actuality of what I've sold them, they're a little disappointed, because I can get people really excited about something, and I walk out the room and they're like, wow, yeah, let's get that thing. And then they're like, well, no, it's not that good. So I remember, like, and I'm talking particularly about my television career, like I would sell ideas to people and I could really go in a way of getting it really, yeah, that's it. And then it's X's and O's or something. And they're like, oh, okay, we don't want that idea. So I'd learned to, because actually where I trained to persuade people was, I had a year as a researcher on daytime television. I think I told you before, there was 11 researchers. There was 3 hours of live television every day, but there was only like 6 or 8 slots a day. And always a slot was gone to cookery, always a slot was gone to music, always a slot was gone to the interview, blah, blah. So the rest of us younger researchers had to pitch for our slot, and you had to go, he'd go next, and you'd go, okay, I've got a one-arm banjo playing lesbian from Kentucky who's going to fly in on her own jet, and yeah, give me more. So you had to get as few words into a persuasive a statement as you could, and you got really good at it. And he used to say to us, if your idea doesn't fit in the little telly box on the top of the listings, it's not worth telling me. Yeah. So if a TV reviewer can't go, it's a show about Sonia Lennon's green blouse, don't bother. If it's too hard to explain to people. So that goes into his keep it simple, brevity, right? Keep it, tell them what you're going to tell them it, and then tell them what you just told them.
And also, I mean, the one big takeout for me when we were...
Sonia, let's prepare ourselves for that, and we'll take a break.
That was very harsh.
I said, Sonia. Sonia, we have taken a break now, and I permit you to carry on with the point you're about to make. Proceed.
Esther.
No problem.
The big learning for me when we were doing the pitch circuit with the business.
The pitch circuit.
It was.
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
Stop.
We did speed pitch dating.
Oh my God, that story. So we went to New York, right? And we were invited, the only European startup to go to New York to speed investment pitch. And so we got to some swanky, 50th story of some office block somewhere in Manhattan, and we did a whole day of workshops and la 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 and blah.
You
blah.
closed the NASDAQ that day.
I closed the NASDAQ that day. Oh.
Cool. We got to get a photo of that if you haven't.
Yeah, I don't think we have a photo. Oh, we might have a photo somewhere.
We do. Yeah.
But Anyway, we got to this darkened room. I remember it as a darkened room. Do you, Bren? It was
there was 2 rooms, because it was a corridor between the rooms, and that's where we had our chat.
That's right. So you go in, right, and there's something like 40 investors, right?
Table 1 to 40. They're all at different tables.
1 to 40, and there's 1 investor, and there's 2 seats at each table, right? A little tiny table. And the first 20, we went in and we had our iPad and we had our pitch deck, and we'd be like, and you only had like literally 3 minutes to sell your idea, to get a hook of interest. And the first 20, we'd be going, here we go, this is our wonderful idea. And then they'd go, yeah, no, we don't invest in non-US, right? So we got to the corridor, we'd done the first 20, we get to the corridor, Brendan is howling at me at this stage saying, what the fuck are we doing here? This is useless. There's no point. It's such a waste of time. And we're in New York. And I was like, okay, stop. Time for a change of strategy. And so we went in. I don't know how we came up with it, but literally went into the next room and we sat down. And our first question to each investor of the next 20 was, do you invest in non-US? And they'd say, well, I don't know. What have you got?
Clever.
Dynamic of each of the pitches for the next session. And I will never, ever forget it. We sat on the roof of Soho House in New York, going through a pile of business cards like top trumps. I mean, there were people laughing at us because we were literally flicking through the business cards. It was so funny. Now, we didn't walk away with investment from that particular pitch fest, but we had a hell of a laugh.
It's worth remembering the very glamorous Marilyn Monroe-esque type. She had her cleavage out in remember that woman who was an investor, and she was actually married to a billionaire, a 97-year-old billionaire. Do you remember? So she was his for want of a better phrase, is Dolly Bird, right? But she was really squeaky New York. Oh my God, I love you guys. I love fashion. And we were like, who the hell is this? We loved her. She was kind of amazing.
I went out with a guy whose name, I kid you not, was Brandon Fail. And we had such a laugh.
Oh my God.
Brandon Fail.
But my point is that from that pitching for all we were worth, the big takeout was that you had to give the sell, not the tell. So you to persuade somebody, you hook them with the concept and the idea, not with the granular. They have to assume that you have the granular to back up your argument if required. So it's more about that, exactly that Aristotle piece of, you know, hooking them with emotion, getting them to get interested in it. But yeah, I just love all of that.
Yeah, that day. Oh my goodness.
Remember a couple of weeks ago, Brendan, you mentioned in an episode, and I sent you on this article, it's going to be in the show notes, about you, it was one of your relative or somebody you knew was kind of getting a bit conspiracy theory. And so I sent you on this article that I saw in the New York Times, and it's the science of reasoning with unreasonable people. So I guess it's kind of like persuading them. So if someone has a point of view, you're like, that's just unsafe or unclear. The nub of the argument is, don't try to change someone else's mind. Instead, help them find their own motivation to change. So there's no point in telling you can, instead of trying to change it in the moment, just sort of listen to them and go, okay, you think that donkey should be in the government and run the country. How do you think that's going to work on a practical level? And then when you kind of drill down to things like that, they'll be like, oh yes, donkeys can't drive, or donkeys can't hold it. You know what I mean? So like, make them figure it out themselves. Say again?
Donkeys can.
Yeah.
Not all donkeys.
And there currently are some donkeys holding ministry roles, let's be honest.
There we go. Yeah.
But interesting you bring that up, because I suppose, and this fascinates me, is the ultimate or the most aggressive form of persuasion is radicalization, right? And that world just that you can get into somebody's mind and radicalize them to a viewpoint that they don't come from or understand or had no understanding of, just based on a vulnerability. Or so nobody really understands how it works, but we use these phrases a lot, right? And it tends to happen to disenfranchised or people left on the fringes, or people feel that they're left on fringes or whatever. But it's really fascinating. And I was thinking about possibly doing my thesis on is it possible to de-radicalize people? And there's one story somebody in our course keeps telling us, Sonia, or is it yours telling us? And it comes up a lot, this story about they know somebody who was radicalized and then found the way out. And he was radicalized by extreme right skinheads in London. And how he was radicalized, he now goes around trying to help these young men come away from the right, or, you know, see a better way. Is he was smoking a spliff outside a park one day, unemployed, bored, and the only person who had shown him kindness in a long time was this man walked up to him and said, you can do better than that. You don't need to be smoking that spliff on the street corner. Come with me. And even though it started off with this cool dude bringing him off, who radicalized him into the far right. But took him away from drugs. So it was kind of like he was showing him a positive. So he started, it's kind of like the radicalization into Christianity or any religion. This is the way, come with me, I'll show you the way. It's better here, right? So, and you need something to believe in. So he was looking for something to take him away. So you can really, and because of, I suppose, the internet is in our hand and constantly there, it's much easier to get access to people's minds, isn't it? Especially vulnerable people's minds, and then use them to your own devices. So in a way, Trumpism is a radicalization of a form, because he has convinced half of America that building a wall, that he's tapped into their fears and insecurities and their greed. And so he's built a movement on it now. So it's absolutely fascinating. Like BBC Two are rolling out these Trump documentaries now about the different areas that he's affected. And one is, you know, on Twitter, Trump on the wall, Trump on war. It's fascinating how he seems to, I mean, I think he's just a natural salesperson. He's just a natural persuader. So he can convince himself of the truth, of his truth of the situation. That's a really good salesperson. They've convinced themselves of a truth, and they get behind the truth, that truth, which is their truth, which is not the truth, right? And they see it till, like, even, you know, calling the election a stolen election, that was a form of persuasion. That was saying to people, fight.
If you keep repeating that tiny little phrase, and you get all your different actors involved to keep repeating the same thing, and then you're like, was it stolen? People start to, if you see it, often enough, you kind of, gets
look at
embedded.
Myanmar. We don't even question. We don't
Or
even
Turkey,
question.
how to lose a country in 7 days.
But we question Turkey because his politics is somewhat, and we have other dissenting voices. We don't really question Myanmar. We go, oh, that was stolen. That's a coup. We don't actually even know. We're taking the first truth we hear. We're taking that as the reality. Just because we don't like Trump and he's funny looking, we kind of tend to not believe him because we're probably a little left center leaning. So we probably don't really like what he says or represents or stands for, and never did. But with Myanmar, I was watching that the other day and listening to the news and saying, that's the only version of events I've heard from there. And I'm choosing to believe that election was stolen by a coup and that woman is being house arrested. And it all seems to make rational sense, right? But it's still a version of events.
Piece, though, isn't it?
Isn't it?
The questioning, and it's funny because when I was thinking about this issue, the one thing that and it's linked to my outside thing, the one thing that kept coming into my head was when myself and Dave. So we are 26 years together this year, I think.
Whoa.
Unbelievable.
That's crazy.
And we were together maybe about 5 years, and I really, really wanted to get married. And he really, really didn't. And we were at an impasse.
Mm-hmm.
We were at an absolute impasse. And it was, I just remember he had been away. We had had a long distance relationship. He'd been in Paris, and then he did his master's in Paris, and then he went to live in Amsterdam, working in a design studio there. And so we were having this kind of, commuter relationship. And then when he came home, there was sort of a general expectation that we'd get married, not least from me. And he flat out refused, and it was awful. It was, I'll never forget it. I felt lacking in control, because obviously I wanted to persuade him that it was the right thing to do. Not even the right thing to do, and we'll come to that in a minute. It was what I wanted to do. And for me, so that made it more important for me to effectively get my way. And ultimately, I had to stand down, which, as you can imagine.
Yeah, no, I can't imagine, to be honest.
Yeah, right. So I had to stand down. And the rationale for standing down was that I had to accept that he didn't want to get married more than I did. And I thought about it. And once I had made that kind of decision in my head, I started to ask myself why I wanted to get married at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that it boiled down to a big party and a great frock. And they were the only reasons that I wanted to get married. It had nothing to do with any ceremonial value, any commitment issues, any religious beliefs. It was just to show off, basically. Mm-hmm. That was all I wanted it for. And once I got to that, the whole thing was stupid.
Mm-hmm.
So
it is stupid.
Well, no, I know it's stupid now, but at the time, that was really, really hard to.
So I'm just curious, right? I know this story very well, and it always fascinates me, because we now both, interestingly, we should analyze that. Both of us introduced Dave as your husband rather than go partner or say squashy words or explain or. We just go as husband. It's as good as husband, right? Yeah. And then if you say that, people go, "What do you mean by that? Oh, are they not married? Oh, fuck off! That's what I mean by that. Mind your own business. How about that?" So it's like annoying, because they wouldn't ask it if it was the other way around. This is Dave's girlfriend.
Because that's Dave. Solid. We accept that kind of relationship. We get that.
It's to do with. Honestly, I think it's to do with Sonia's profile in the public eye as well. That people go, "Oh, she's not married." Whereas it just wouldn't happen. It doesn't happen to me. Nobody ever asks me. Doesn't happen to me. Ever. So we both, you and I, Sonia, you start. I saw you do it a couple of times, and I was like, yeah, I'm doing that as well. That's just easier. And it's funny, isn't it?
But here's the interesting thing. I know for a fact firstly, that I am very persuasive, and most of the time I can.
Oh, I know you are. Oh, yes, you are. Whoa.
But isn't it interesting that I fell for a man who my specific charms didn't work on? That actually it would have nearly been too easy.
Yeah, well, I think that's it. You'd be bored if you weren't challenged, right? Or I didn't have an intellectual equal at very least, right? Who had their own mind. That'd just bore you. Well, I'd love to marry you. But also, I think what's interesting for me, and this is what I want to ask you is, did you not do the classic, I'll break up with him and then he'll have to get married and he'll really want, the way girls did that. I've dumped him. I'm waiting for him to ring now. We're going to get married any day. I mean, a lot of my girlfriends have done that and it's worked. Did you never come to that?
No, because I didn't want to break up with him.
Therefore, compared to other cases that I've seen, it wasn't that important to you. Do you get me?
No, it fundamentally wasn't, because the minute I realized,
you broke it down when you kind of analysed it.
Yes.
And I realized I could have a big party in a great frock anytime I wanted.
I know 2 women in my life who broke up with the love of their lives, and they still talk about them, and I will never name them, and they are both married now, but they broke up with the guy that one of them particularly probably should have hung around for, and don't know where he is now, funny enough, but maybe not. But they broke up because he wouldn't get married.
That was never on the cards.
And I think they broke up because they couldn't persuade him to get married. But what they did was, and I remember even thinking, why are you taking so personally? It's not about you, it's him. He doesn't want to get married, but he's never going to marry me. And it's because I'm not the one. That's what they were thinking. And I remember thinking the guys were not explaining it properly to them. Either if she's not the one, fine, don't move on and be honest with her, or tell her she is the one, it's just you don't want to get married. And I remember they couldn't join that up. They couldn't say, look, you are the one, I just don't want to get married. So I'm garnering and guessing that Dave did say to you, you are the one, I just don't want to get married.
You're like, no, he didn't say that.
Remember that not part of the conversation. A lack of commitment was not part of the conversation. Right? So it wasn't that I needed the affirmation of the wedding to prove that he was committed at all.
Which is often the case as well.
Yes.
The less said about that, the better.
But we'll talk about
here's my outside thing, right?
Oh yeah.
No wedding ring.
You buy your own rings. You don't need someone else to do it for you.
So we have a funny line about weddings, myself and Adam, which has evolved into an after dinner joke, which now has bitten me on the ass in the press. So when we met, we were madly in love, of the romantic period, and it was, and you there's a really funny, I bought him a claddagh ring and he didn't know what claddagh was because he's from Poland, and and I didn't know the heart is for love, the thing is for friendship, and this thing is for circle of life. It's got a lovely, really cheesy sentiment, and he really loved that. And he bought his mum one then, and so he'd wear the heart, and then he loved, the heart in means that you're taken, and the heart out, and all this girly stuff. And he'd never heard of it. So I can imagine if you've heard that first time in your life in your late 30s, it's quite cute, and it's he's Polish, he thinks it's gorgeous, he thinks it's lovely, it's very nice. And so the marriage thing had been talked about, right? And I was like, whoa. And the problem I had was I was fighting for the right in 2015 for marriage equality, because I knew with marriage equality, it would kill a lot of bullies, a lot of school, teachers, the law, everybody is now, gay people are accepted into mainstream life. It's a really positive thing. But I could never publicly say, remember the time, I don't want to get married. And so I had to play along a little bit, publicly said, someday we'll get married. And then one day, once the vote happened, literally the day it happened, I was like, no, I'll never get married, just saying, letting you know. And I remember one time at a dinner party, Adam sort of overhearing me go, when Adam's property portfolio matches mine, then I'll think about it. Right? I have 2 apartments, he has 1. It's a joke. It's blah, blah. And it's a total joke. We have they're small apartments. It's not a property portfolio, right? And then the joke was, I found out he had a huge pension. He has a huge pension. He's been in the same company for 15 years. And so the joke always goes, and then I found out he's a huge pension. So straight in there with the ring, want to get married, darling? Get me hands of that pension. So this isn't a joke. I don't want to get married. Go back to the freaking, I stupidly told it to a journalist who put it in an interview I did, and it made the headline of the interview on page 3 of this paper, and all of Adam's work colleagues photocopied it and sent it to us on holiday. I believe congratulations are in order to. When I discovered he had a huge pension, I was straight in there with the ring. I was like, oh my God.
Little did they know you're fighting for the right not to get married.
Exactly. Now, Esther, it'd be remiss of us not to ask you, would marriage be on the cards?
I think.
Don't be afraid of us.
Don't be ready. No, I think, I think I'll be at sign. No, it's not important to me. It really isn't. The idea, it's never been my fantasy. Someone, you have the idea of, in my head, I've gotten to the top of the altar, or to the bottom of the aisle, and I'm like, what do you do after that? I want the outfit, I think, probably in the party, but not the legally binding contract. No, thanks. No. But if you think about it, it's a lot. It is a lot. I think people just swan into it, but no, not for me. I don't think. Cut to me.
I think
married to an 87-year-old billionaire. I'll be like,
marriage is like tattoos or lip fillers. You will regret it.
Yeah, no, not for me.
No,
Good for you, not for me. That falls into that category.
It's great to get to 50 and have the power of hindsight and look at, the decimated marriages of your friends, not all of them, but some of them, and go, was it worth the pain? And honestly, I can say my experience is no, it's not worth the pain. To get to my breakups have been really painful, but they didn't involve illegality. One of my best friends is just going through a divorce that would keep you awake at night. What's happening?
The only caveat to that is if there are children and you love those children wouldn't exist without the marriage, right? Or without the relationship anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But also I think marriage is bad for children, because I've seen the situation of a breakup.
Children shouldn't get married. Children definitely shouldn't get married, and in fact, it's illegal.
No, but I've seen people in a breakup because it's a divorce use children, and it's just not good.
It's ammunition, yeah.
When you're not married, it's pretty clean. I mean, it's messy with assets and stuff like that, but you can walk away with, and it's easier.
I don't think you can. I think you get to a point, like if you get to a point of reality as a small family, married or not, and it's the same thing. I think you might save a few quid.
Yeah.
In terms of a disentanglement,
yeah.
Pretty gnarly.
Now, Brendan, have you got an outside thing for us today?
Well,
the clattering?
No.
Adam's pension documents. Imagine.
Sign here, darling.
Sign, the little notary public.
Yeah, I have done this before, but I've read this. I think I must have read this about 10 times now. But the ultimate art of persuasion, how to win friends.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I told you, didn't I, before I gave it to my niece who read it in a day. She's 11. Isn't that amazing? She read it in a day. So I said, and in the back of this, look, my dad's handwriting. It's my dad's book.
What does it say?
Daniel and Brendan are both meant to love each other.
Oh, that's cute. Sweet.
I've shown Daniel that, actually, so that's not being indiscreet. But yeah, my dad has millions of versions of it that gave us all this book. And it's a really simple little book, but it is about the art of persuasion, and specifically around business, and about, how to win friends and influence people. And it's like, I got my niece to review it for me. I said, what did you think of it? And she said, it was actually very practical. Which I really liked. And I said, did you learn anything from it? She said, yes. What I learned is something that I probably knew, she said, already, but didn't put into practice, is if you want somebody to do something for you, the key is to make them feel that you've listened to them.
Nice. Good point on this. I'm doing my active listening.
Which were in none of your Aristotle shite points.
Well, it was 2,000 years ago, so
at that point you should have actually said, sorry, what?
Sorry, again, Aristotle, go on. Yeah, I'm listening. So yeah.
That was lovely.
End scene. Yay, cool. Oh yeah, let's do our ins and outs.
Yeah.
Sonia, any development? I know you're sick of asking, because people used to ask me when I was getting my house done. Anything on the house? What's the latest?
Well, we've had to go back to the bank for more money.
Oh. Yeah. Persuade them to give you more.
I think that's a message from the grave. Because it actually says, Daniel and Brendan, you both must love each other. And we fight a little bit.
You need to, I like that one. Sometimes you have that kind of
Well, it's
uncertainty
made
around
me-
something
it's
and you get a
made me
little
go.
message. It's nice. Yeah.
Maybe I'll drop Daniel a little text, see if he's okay.
Yeah, do.
Great idea.
Do.
Yeah. Okay.
So Sonia, you're doing the recap here. In this episode, we talk about
Okay.
Ah, yes, Sonia, you do the run. You do
Here
we go.
This week. All right, okay.
Hang on 1 sec. Ins and outs. Okie dokie. Go.
I'm Sonia Lennon,
And I'm Brendan Courtney.
and you're listening to Lennon Courtney Left Alone, a podcast about conversations we have when we're left alone.
This week, we're looking at the persuasion issue.
In this episode, we talk about how to persuade people and how to admit defeat.
You don't need to persuade me. I'm dying to listen to us.
This is the Persuasion Issue.
Oh yeah, this is
Typo.
the favorite things. Oops.
Typo. Someone's not at the races today.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Ready? Wowee, what a whip-cracking 30-minute roller coaster that was, and a mixed message.
We'd love to persuade you to hit the subscribe button with whatever's in your hand or wherever you get your podcast so you never miss an issue.
For all the latest Lennon Courtney at Dunn Stores For all the latest Lennon Courtney at Dunn Stores updates, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube.
And check out the new show notes for links to our outside things.
The Lennon Courtney Left Alone theme music was written by the wonderful Katie Laffin. Krutika Kotigan did...
Yeah, that was the first time Brendan said it.
Okay.
Kotigan.
The Lennon Courtney Left Alone theme music was written by the wonderful Katie Laffin. Krutika Kotian did great work, as always, behind the scenes. And Esther O'More Donoghue is our fabulous and favourite producer.
Until next Thursday.
Bye.
Bye.
Esther Mordini, who has improved her camera angles. Let us pray. It stays this way forever.
Okay.
Very good.
Stop
That
it.
was super.
Yeah.
That was just wunderbar, guys.
Wunderbar.